Do not confuse this with treatment or mental health advice or direction. Nothing on this podcast is made to supplement or supersede the relationship and direction of your mental health caretakers. Although David Kozlowski is a licensed marriage and family therapist, he is not functioning as a certified mental health professional in this environment. And same applies to any professional who may appear on the OG Therapy podcast. Welcome to the OG Therapy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of OG Therapy, and today we got another audio episode for you guys because we are moving on up. Now, a lot of you guys probably aren't old enough to know what that song was, but it's opening song and lyric from The Jeffersons, a 1970s show. And yes, I was a little kid watching that in the 70s. So we are moving on up. We got a new studio that we're moving into. And so we'll be launching that in the beginning of March. And thanks to Happy Rabbit Productions, we will be in the Happy Rabbit Productions official studio. And man, this studio is amazing. I don't think we're worthy. Honestly, I don't think we deserve it, but we're going to use it anyways. And if you would like to make a feature film, a documentary, sell it to Netflix, sell it to Hulu, sell it to Sundance Film Festival, or if you just got some commercials you need to film, and if you want to take your podcast to another level, basically, if you're like already kicking butt in the podcast industry or getting some good momentum in your niche industry or demographic, whatever you do for podcasting, but you just don't have an extra $150,000 to put into new gear and equipment, hit up Happy Rabbit Productions, and they could possibly help you out with all of your production needs, from podcasts to feature films to commercials. They got you covered. Happy Rabbit Productions, thank you for hooking us up here at OG Therapy. And I also want to announce that we will be launching a new podcast in just a few weeks called Kava Confessions. Kava Confessions is a spinoff of OG Therapy. It's going to be me interviewing people and having them give you guys some of their OG knowledge on relationships. So you guys growing up in school, we learn math, English, science, and all those things, but we don't learn how to deal with drama. We don't learn how to make friends. We don't learn how to break up with people or how to break up with friends. We don't learn how to get new friend groups, and we definitely don't learn in school how to deal with family drama, siblings, parents, etc. So in OG Therapy, new presentation, Kava Confessions, I'm going to be featuring some people that, in my opinion, have become relationship experts, meaning they've been through a lot of horrible things in their life, and they figured out how relationships are the number one determining factor if what you're going through is going to ruin you for the rest of your life, damage you, and you're not going to come back from it, or if what you're going through is just a new evolution. Even if it's trauma, even if it's horrible, and if it's painful, it does not have to define you. It doesn't have to make you into a victim. Instead, it could actually give you some OG knowledge and wisdom, and I'm going to have those types of people here to share that on the podcast, and all of them have had their own success in their own right. Some have had success in athletics, in business. Some have had success just in their community and being great people and taking their hurt and pain and turning it into purpose and a passion. So we look forward to releasing our first episode of Kava Confessions in March to you guys. So until then, I'm going to follow up on a question that I answered last week. This is the part 2 to that question that we got from a father, and it has to do with the 14-year-old girl. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, that was specifically for dads. So share that to all your dads out there that you know, because that podcast was about dads freaking out or trying not to freak out when their 14-year-old daughter comes home with a boy that you don't like, and they are already talking about marriage, so on and so forth, because every dad does not want that to happen. So listen to that. But today's a part 2 of that, where I answer this question. The dad asked me. Okay, also, so part 2 to the last question he gave me. To add to the episode of last question, how do I handle the relationship? How do I handle when the relationship gets too serious, talking about marriage and such, when she is only 14 years old? Trying not to freak out. Thanks. Okay. Well, like I said last week, freaking out when your daughter's 14 years old and she's got a boyfriend, that's standard. That's par for the course, right? Expect you to do that. But when you don't like the guy she's dating, that's going to add a little bit more freak out and worry to that. But when you hear them talking about maybe we should get married, this is a time for me to teach you a little tool that I've taught in other episodes, but every time someone has a question, there's a lot of the tools that I've used. These are all social health tools. These are not mental health tools. They were created to help relationships specifically. See, mental health deals with mental problems, and you have to have problems to need mental health treatment. Social health is to improve relationships so you don't ever have mental health problems. So this social health tool that I'm going to be sharing with you guys is a tool that I've taught lots of people. It's a tool that when you're in a situation where someone is saying some nonsense and you don't want to ruin the relationship, you don't want to call them out and put them on blast like your parents would have done to you if you're 14 years old talking about marriage. Because the old school parents, they didn't really have that thing, starts with an F, ends with an ilter. Yeah, that's right, filter. They didn't really have too much of a filter, at least not in my situation. I assume most of you out there that are in your 40s and 50s, your parents didn't have much of a filter either. So what I'm going to suggest to you, Dad, in this situation, it's a technique called being agreeable versus having to agree. So a little human psychology 101 goes like this. The definition of power, and I'm referring to relationships, not like electric power or nuclear power or nothing like that. The definition of power is one's ability to influence another human being. Now, there's more than one way to influence other people. So for example, you could use bribery. You can influence someone that way. You can use blackmail. You can use threats. You can use beauty. You can influence, you can be so attractive that if you ask someone to buy something, they go, yes, that's fine. That's why you always notice in the mall kiosks, they always have the beautiful women from, I don't know, from some other country usually selling. And I always walk by and they're like, hey, would you like this female hair product for your wife, or your girlfriend, whatever? And I'm like, no, I'm good, thank you. But every time I walk by, I see some poor sucker there that he's sitting there talking to this beautiful woman. And I'm like, man, he does not get enough attention at home, or he just took the bait. A beautiful woman wanted to talk to him and he just can't help it, right? So the reason why I call this being agreeable instead of agreeing is when you are getting information from someone, when you're hearing someone say, hey, listen, I want to, or we're talking about getting married, or I could see myself marrying this young man, instead of telling this person, hey, you're crazy, instead of calling them out, or instead of shaming them, like that'd be like walking down the mall and this beautiful woman says, hey, would you like to try this hair product? It's like, how dare you ask me that? Get away from me. Don't ever talk to me with your beautiful smile and your pretty teeth and your charisma. Leave me alone, right? You just be agreeable. You say, oh, I'm fine, thank you. And you smile and you just keep on walking, okay? So when your daughter comes to you, dads out there, they start to scare you with some of their talk of marriage, or, their future plans, or how much they're in love with this person. Instead of using other ways to get power, influence over them, like intimidation, like we talked about in the last podcast, or trying to bribe them, I'll buy you this if you break up with this kid. I've heard some dads do some crazy stuff. The way of influence I'd like you to use a style of influence that lasts long. And that style of influence means instead of trying to convince someone and wield power over them, you first have to allow their thoughts, their feelings, and opinions to have power over you before you comment, before you weigh in on the subject whatsoever, and before you share any real insight or thoughts on the matter. So in this situation, for example, imagine a 14-year-old girl. Imagine I'm the dad. She comes to me and she's like, Dad, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so excited, I'm so happy. And you're like, what? It's like, I don't know, like he bought me this beautiful necklace for Valentine's Day, and he bought me these 12 roses, and he got me all these chocolates, and he put roses all over our doorstep in the pedal. And the dad's sitting here looking at, okay, at Harmon's, that's $50 of roses, because those are nice roses. The chocolate, the necklace is $100. Oh, and Dad, he got me a promise ring. Like, imagine the record skip, like, a promise ring? What is he promising in that ring? Well, just like, it's not like an engagement ring. It's like a promise ring, Right there, dads, take a deep breath, serenity now, okay? Listen up. Stay in the pocket. If you're a football fan, you're the quarterback, you're dropping back, you see the rush coming around you, big, huge, sweaty guys are trying to hit you and tackle you. Just stay right there. Don't run. Stay in the pocket. Your defense is strong. And you're going to use the art of being agreeable without having to agree. So it's a well-known fact that you cannot argue with someone who's being agreeable with you. So after your daughter says that, the first thing you do is you thank her. Yes, dads, I said thank you. First time I tell this to some dads, they go, thank her? Why would I thank her for that? I'm pissed off. Well, I said, yeah, you're pissed off, but you paid me, the professional, to give you some suggestions because obviously you're not good at this. Otherwise, you wouldn't be coming over to my office and talking to me about it. And they always say, okay, roger that, carry on. So then I explained to them, then when your daughter says that, the reason why I want you to say thank you is because you're showing her that the information that she just gave you is helpful information, and you'd rather her open up and talk to you about what she's really thinking and feeling inside instead of her hiding it from you. Girls that hide those feelings from their dads, end up being easily manipulated by boyfriends who cause problems between the family and said daughter. So by thanking her, you're saying you're giving her a positive reward for an action that you want her to always do. And that action is you always want your daughter to tell you what she's thinking and not to hide it from you. So then the next step, once you thank her, she'll give you a weird look like, thank you. And then you could say something like, well, what basically I mean is that I know in the past I've been kind of a hard A, and sometimes I can be intimidating, and maybe I wasn't, as nice to him in the very beginning, but I just want to say thank you because I know you're in love and you're having these moments and stuff like that. And I remember those times when I was young and how fun and exciting that is. So I just want to let you know that, like, in the past I would have freaked out. However, right now I realize it's just a promise ring. It's not a real engagement ring. And mind you guys, Dad, let me time out for a second. In your mind, you have a choice. You're either going to freak out and look at like, oh my gosh, this kid spent like $200 on my daughter and they've been dating for 4 weeks. I've got a stage 5 clinger here. I got to protect my daughter. We might have to get like a restraining order against him. Calm down, pump the brakes, take a deep breath. This kid just doesn't have any game. He might be laying it on too thick. Let's not accuse him as being a total manipulative F-boy quite yet, right? But if he does turn out to be that way in the future, she won't have to hide it from you because you haven't been against him since day one. So connection before concern, getting back, not connection before concern, I'm throwing off. That's a different social tool. This is called agreeable instead of having to agree. At this moment, you're showing that you're going along with what she's saying. And then after you say that, she'll continue to give you more information. She'll add some stuff on it. And you're not dismissing her feelings for the boyfriend and saying, oh, a promise ring, you guys aren't going to get married. Leave all those comments out of it because it'll only make it worse. Now she went from, I get to share something that I'm nervous to tell my dad about, to now my dad's pissed off. And now her brain's going, doot, 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 doot. Note to self, you can't tell your dad how you feel about your boyfriend because he freaks out. Every time I've ever talked to a teenager and I said, hey, how come you didn't tell your parents you're having sex? How come you didn't tell your parents you're vaping? How come you didn't tell your parents you did this? How come you didn't tell your parents you snuck out? You know why? The number one reason, in fact, I think the only thing I've ever heard in response is because they'll kill me. And I have to remind the kids, I'm like, dude, you're 14, 15 years old. Your parents have already bought and paid for too much of your life. They're not going to kill you now. They got to see this through. They're not going to adopt you or put you up for adoption at 16 years old. Trust me, if they're going to kill you, they would have killed you by now. Okay, it's not going to happen. Trust me, everything's okay. They're going to be okay. All right. So after you say that, or not after you say that, but like after you go through this with your daughter, you remind her you have her back. She can always come and tell you whatever she wants. And then at the end of it, you can say, hey, I just want to let you know, thanks for telling me everything you feel about your boyfriend. Granted, you know that, we have strict rules about, intimacy and, sex and stuff like that. And we also, as much as we like to have him around, you're still a teenager. So can't quite give you the freedom to like hang out all night and to, to be with them all the time. So we're still going to want you to hang out with your friends, as I'm sure you still do, but I do appreciate you coming and trusting me with that information. You guys, every time you dads stay in the pocket, you just be agreeable. Don't be sarcastic and just agree, because sometimes dads can be like, oh yeah, I think that's great. In fact, why don't you guys get married now? In fact, why don't I just sign over the paperwork so you guys can get married when you're 14 years old? Obviously, that's going to make it worse as well. So stay in the pocket, dads. Be agreeable, which means you don't have to agree. And then when it is time, when you have to share some real hard opinions about this young man, or maybe when you're seeing some patterns that you're concerned with your daughter, then when you bring it up, she now has to pay close attention and take you serious. Because the law of the land says when someone hears you out, they don't interrupt you, they listen to your thoughts, feelings, and opinions, which is what you're going to do. Then when it's their time to talk, even if you don't really want to hear what they're saying, you got to take it serious, and you got to give it a good, once or twice over in your brain and consider really what they're saying. And you can't be so easily to dismiss it because they didn't dismiss you. All right, you guys, thank you as always for following us here on OG Therapy, and follow us on all social media. We're out there. We're starting new TikTok. We're on TikTok, and we're starting doing some new content with someone on TikTok we're excited about. We'll be introducing her in the month to come. But until next time, you guys, be cool.